Welcome back to my series Uber driver tips and Lyft driver tips, where I give you Uber tips and Lyft tips to help you make more money, get higher ratings, and overall have a way better time driving for Lyft and driving for Uber. This is a very important tip, and that is idling over driving. A lot of times when I talk to drivers, and I still don't know why drivers do this, we'll talk about how they drive for Uber and Lyft and all this kind of stuff. And I'll say, how long do you drive for? And they're like, well, I'm going to drop you off. Then I'll probably drive around, wait for another ride, and I'll just keep doing that over and over and over again. Now, I will say this. Uber and Lyft, this wasn't the case in the past. But Uber and Lyft now, in case you don't know, you can actually accept a ride before you finish your current ride. So you're almost overlapping. Back in the day, it was a very hard cutoff where you finish your ride, you wait for a new request. You get a ride, you do that ride, you stop, you wait for a new request. Now it's an overlapping method, which is a lot better. However, if let's say it's a very slow night, let's say there's not a lot of rides in general in your area, you are way better off, and of course, always be safe. You are way better off after, let's say you drop somebody off, pulling over somewhere and idling, just waiting for a ride, than driving around. At the end of the day, it's just pure economics where, let's say if you're driving around, and I remember back in the day, I first started driving in 2014, 2015, I would talk to drivers who say, oh yeah, I would drive around for 5 minutes before I got another ride. I'm like, well, that's 5 minutes of you adding more miles onto your car, wasting more gas, putting more depreciation on your car. You're just, you're blowing money at that point. You're way better off, and of course, like I said, be safe because in a city, this can get a lot trickier. But you're way better off pulling over somewhere, maybe finding a quick parking lot, pulling over somewhere and throwing on your hazards, sitting there and waiting 5 minutes because you're going to waste way less gas and everything as opposed to driving around. This is super important. One huge pro tip or a sub pro tip on top of this, or pro tipception, is try to avoid being close to where you drop the person off. I find that's more of like a sketchy note, because as you can imagine, if let's say you go to someone's personal residence, you drop them off, you're sitting right in front of their house, doing this idling over driving pro tip, and you're like, the Uber driver's still just outside of my house. They've been out there for the past 5 minutes. This is weird. So I always suggest, after you drop them off, drive up like a couple blocks, just be out of sight, out of mind, but stay on idle. If you've not gotten that overlap request yet from Uber or Lyft, just stay on idle. Don't be zooming around and driving around unless you're trying to hit a surge pocket, which is a bit different. But if you're just aimlessly driving, remember, all you're doing is wasting more money. You're going to have to spend more on gas, which right now at the time of this video is outrageous. You can be putting way more depreciation on your car and a lot more. Always choose idling over driving.